The night my husband tried to bury me, I was standing beside him in a ballroom, filled with 500 people. Everyone came to celebrate me. By midnight, I was a thief.
My name is Claire Bennett. I was 41 years old, married for 11 years, and the chief financial officer of Bennett Urban Development, the company my father had built from nothing in Cleveland, Ohio. My husband, Daniel, was the company's chief executive. My best friend, Vanessa Cole, ran public relations. I trusted both of them with my life. That was my first mistake. The gala was supposed to announce our biggest project yet, Harbor House, a $200 million redevelopment that would turn an abandoned lakefront factory into affordable apartments, shops, and a public park. It had been my father's dream before cancer took him. 10 minutes before my speech, Daniel touched my arm. "You look nervous," he said. "I'm not nervous." He smiled, but his eyes did not. "Good. Just remember to keep your remarks short." That should have warned me. Daniel usually begged me to speak longer because investors trusted me. That night he wanted me off the stage quickly. Vanessa appeared beside him in a silver dress. We had been friends since college. She knew every secret I had, including how terrified I was of failing my father. "You earned this," she whispered, hugging me. "Whatever happens, remember that. Whatever happens." Those words stayed in my mind as I walked onto the stage. The applause was warm. I looked at my father's photograph behind me. Thomas Bennett had been a carpenter before becoming a developer. He taught me that a building was a promise. I began my speech. My father believed a city should remember the people who built it. The screen went black. At first, everyone thought it was a technical problem. Then a spreadsheet appeared. A red circle surrounded a transfer for $8 million. The receiving account carried my name. Whispers rolled through the ballroom. I turned toward Daniel. He looked shocked. Too shocked, like an actor waiting for applause. Another document appeared, then another. My electronic signature was on every one. I heard someone say, "She stole the Harbor House funds." I stepped toward the microphone. "These documents are false." Two police detectives entered through the rear doors. That was when I understood. This was not a mistake. It was a performance. And I was the only person who had not received the script. Daniel climbed onto the stage. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Claire," he said softly. "Please cooperate. You knew." He lowered his voice. "Don't make this worse." Vanessa stood below the stage, one hand over her mouth. Tears shone in her eyes. Later, I would remember that she never looked surprised. Detective Ruiz asked me to come with him. I was not handcuffed, but the cameras made it feel worse. Every step toward the exit became part of the story Daniel wanted the world to see. Outside, rain struck the pavement. Reporters shouted questions. "Claire, did you steal from your father's company? Did you use charity funds? Is your husband cooperating with police?" I looked back through the glass doors. Daniel had his arm around Vanessa. For 1 second, her head rested against his shoulder. Then she saw me watching and stepped away. At the station, I answered questions for 4 hours. The transfers had been approved from my computer and authorized with my signature token. But I had been in Columbus on those dates, caring for my mother after surgery. My lawyer, Martin Shaw, finally arrived near dawn. He had worked for my father for 20 years. I expected anger on my behalf. Instead, he looked frightened. "Say nothing else," he told me. "Someone inside the company did this. Then help me prove it." He glanced at the interview room camera. Not here. I was released while investigators reviewed the evidence. No charges had been filed yet, but by breakfast my face was on every local news station. Daniel did not come to get me. Martin drove me home. When we reached my house, My key no longer worked. Daniel opened the door but left the chain attached. "What did you do?" I asked. "The board placed you on leave. The company's attorneys advised me to protect all records. This is my home. It's titled to the Bennett Family Trust." I stared at him. "You changed the locks while I was being questioned." His face hardened. $8 million is missing. And you know I didn't take it. For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw no grief in him, no confusion, and no love. I saw impatience. "Your bags are at the hotel downtown," he said. "Vanessa arranged a room." I laughed once. I could not help it. Of course she did. He started closing the door. "Daniel, look at me. If you did this, I will find out. You need rest. And when I find out, I will take back everything." He looked almost sorry for me. There won't be anything left to take. The door shut between us. At the hotel, I opened the suitcase Vanessa had packed. My clothes were folded perfectly. My medicine was in the side pocket. On top was the blue sweater Daniel had given me on our first anniversary. Under it lay an envelope I had never seen. My name was written across the front in my father's handwriting. Inside was a brass key and one sentence. "If Daniel ever says there is nothing left, go to locker 314. My father had been dead for 3 years, and somehow he had known this night would come. Part TWO. Teats sirat emwafifi ape emlafi einde. I did not sleep. At sunrise, I called Martin and showed him the note. He read it twice. "Where did you find this?" "In the suitcase Vanessa packed." "Then she may not know it was there. Or she wanted me to find it." Martin shook his head. "Trust no one until we understand what happened." The key had the name of an old bank engraved on it. The bank had merged years earlier, but its original vault still operated beneath a branch downtown. Locker 314 was a private safe, deposit box registered to my father. The manager told me I was listed as the successor. Inside the box were 3 things: an old phone, a sealed folder, and a photograph. The photograph showed my father standing at a construction site beside a younger Daniel. Between them was another man I recognized, Richard Cole, Vanessa's father. Richard had died in a supposed boating accident when Vanessa and I were 23. On the back, my father had written, "Ask who owned Lakeview before the fire." The folder contained incorporation papers for Lakeview Renewal Partners. The owners were my father, Richard Cole, and an unnamed holding corporation. The old phone still had power when I connected it to a charger. It required a 4-digit code. I tried my birthday, my father's birthday, and the year he founded the company. Nothing worked. Martin stared at the picture. Lakeview was Thomas's first major development. The old warehouse burned before construction began. Insurance paid the losses. Why have I never heard about Richard being involved? Because after his death, your father never spoke his name. My phone rang. It was Daniel. I let it go to voicemail. His message sounded caring enough for television. "Claire, the board meets at noon. If you resign and return your voting shares, I may be able to stop them from pursuing civil damages. Think carefully." He was not offering mercy. He was demanding surrender. My father had left me 42% of Bennett Urban Development. Daniel controlled 12%. The remaining shares belonged to investors and a family trust. If I transferred mine, Daniel would control the company. At noon, the board removed me as chief financial officer. By 12:15, Vanessa issued a statement describing Daniel as a heartbroken husband committed to transparency. At 12:30, photographs appeared online of Daniel leaving Vanessa's apartment the previous morning. They claimed she had been comforting him. The betrayal was almost insulting in its simplicity. I hired a criminal defense attorney named Maya Brooks, a former federal prosecutor, who had no connection to my family. She studied every document and said the evidence was too perfect. Real fraud is messy, Maya told me. This looks designed for a jury. Can we prove it? Not while your husband controls the servers, security records, and employees. Then we find evidence he cannot control. I showed her the contents of the box. Maya researched Lakeview. A fire there had killed night watchman Samuel Ortiz. Investigators blamed faulty wiring. The insurance payment saved my father's struggling company. 6 months later, Richard's empty boat was found on Lake Erie, but his body was never recovered. The third owner of Lakeview, Renewal Partners, was hidden behind companies in Delaware and Nevada. Maya traced it to a trust managed by Daniel's late uncle. Daniel's family had secretly owned part of my father's first project. The old phone became our next problem. After several wrong codes, it threatened to erase itself. I studied the photograph again. 3 men stood in front of a painted signs. Licky Vibo, BUID Almo. On the corner of the sign was the project permit number 0314. Locker 314. I entered Zoer 314. The phone opened. There were no contacts and only 6 audio recordings. The first was my father's voice. Claire, if you are hearing this, I waited too long to tell you the truth. My knees weakened. I had not heard his voice since his funeral. The Lakeview fire was not an accident. He continued. Richard believed Daniel's uncle arranged it for the insurance money. I refused to believe him. Then Samuel Ortiz died, and Richard found proof. Before he could take it to the police, he disappeared. The recording ended. In the second message, my father, said Daniel, had approached him years later with a copy of the old partnership agreement. Daniel threatened to expose the insurance scheme and destroy the Bennett name, unless my father gave him a position in the company. That was how Daniel had entered our lives. I had believed we met by chance at a charity dinner. My father had introduced us because he was being blackmailed. The third recording was harder to hear. I thought you would see through him, my father said. Instead, you loved him. That is the greatest failure of my life. I pressed pause and walked to the window. The city below looked unreal. My marriage, my career, even the story of how I met my husband had been built inside a trap. There are 3 more, Maya said gently. The 4th recording described suspicious transfers Daniel had made through subcontractors. My father had started collecting evidence, but his cancer progressed too quickly. The 5th message named someone who had helped him, Richard Cole. Maya and I looked at each other. He said Richard disappeared. I whispered. We played the final recording. A man spoke. His voice was older and rougher than I remembered, but I recognized it from childhood. Claire, this is Richard. If Thomas cannot finish this, I will. I did not die on that lake. I ran because Daniel's family would have killed Vanessa next. I have watched from a distance for 20 years. If Vanessa is standing beside Daniel, do not assume you know why. The message ended with an address in Erie, Pennsylvania. Vanessa's father was alive. And suddenly, I did not know whether my best friend had betrayed me or whether she was trapped in the same nightmare. Tari T. moment I wanted to Hei, Maya wanted to contact federal investigators immediately. I refused. Daniel would call our evidence a desperate story invented by an accused thief. If Richard was alive, we had to find him first. The address led to a closed repair shop near the Pennsylvania waterfront. Dust covered the windows. A neighboring business owner said the tenant, Robert Lane, had left 2 weeks earlier after 2 men came asking questions. Inside the shop, we found nothing except an empty workbench and a circle drawn in dust where something heavy had stood. On the wall was a calendar. One date had been marked October 17. That was 6 days away. The date Daniel planned to hold a special shareholder vote and permanently cancel my ownership rights under the company's misconduct clause. My father's documents were not enough to save my shares. I needed proof that the current fraud had been staged. Back in Cleveland, I began watching Vanessa. I hated myself for it. This was the woman who held my hand when my father died. She planned my wedding shower. She knew I had lost 2 pregnancies and never told anyone. Now she spent every day beside my husband, defending him in public. But Richard's warning stayed with me. Do not assume you know why. For 3 nights, Vanessa went from the office to her dark apartment. On the 4th, Daniel followed her home. I parked across the street. Through the window, I saw them arguing. Vanessa slapped him. Daniel grabbed her wrist. Then he pulled her close and kissed her. I nearly got out of the car. But Vanessa's eyes were open during the kiss. She looked toward the street, directly at my car. Then she raised one hand behind Daniel's back and held up 3 fingers. 3. Locker 314. October 17. Or maybe a warning. The next morning, an envelope appeared under my hotel room door. Inside was a flash drive and a note printed in block letters. Your office camera was copied before it was replaced. The drive contained security footage from the night of the first transfer. A woman entered my office wearing my coat and carrying my bag. Her face was hidden beneath a scarf. At first glance, she looked like me. Then she reached for the door with her left hand. I am right-handed. Vanessa is left-handed. My hope collapsed. She had framed me. Maya noticed something else. When the woman leaned forward, a small tattoo appeared behind her ear. Vanessa had no tattoo. We enlarged the image. The mark was a black triangle. Maya searched private security contractors connected to Bennett Urban. One employee photograph showed a woman with the same tattoo. Her name was Elise Ward. She had worked for Daniel's personal security consultant and resembled me from behind. Elise had disappeared after the gala. Using the video metadata, Maya discovered the copy had been made from Vanessa's work computer 2 hours before the company deleted the original. Vanessa had secretly preserved the evidence. That afternoon, she called me from an unknown number. Go to the women's restroom at the West Side Market, she said. 5 minutes. Come alone. She was waiting in the last stall. When I saw her, all the grief inside me turned to anger. How long? I asked. How long have you been sleeping with him? Her face went pale. 7 months. I slapped her. She accepted it without moving. I'm sorry, she said. Do not say that as if it fixes anything. It doesn't. Then why? Vanessa pulled back her sleeve. Purple bruises circled her wrist. Daniel came to me last year with proof that my father was alive. He said Richard helped set the Lakeview fire and murdered Samuel Ortiz. He threatened to send everything to the police unless I helped him gain control of the company. So you chose him over me. At first, I pretended to. Then I found out he planned to frame you, whether I cooperated or not. I stayed close because it was the only way to collect evidence. You slept with my husband to collect evidence. Tears filled her eyes. No. That part was my weakness. He made me feel terrified and important at the same time. I told myself I was protecting you. Then I crossed a line I can never uncross. Her honesty hurt more than an excuse. Did you pack my suitcase? Les? Did you put my father's envelope inside? I found it behind a drawer in his study. I knew Daniel was going to lock you out. I wanted you to have it. Why didn't you warn me before the gala? Because Daniel had someone watching you. He said if the plan failed, your mother would have an accident on her drive home from physical therapy. My anger turned cold. Vanessa handed me a small recorder. Daniel meets Elise tomorrow night at an empty Harbor House warehouse. He's paying her to leave the country. I can get you inside. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. Trust the evidence. Before leaving, she stopped. Claire. My father contacted me 3 weeks ago. That is why Daniel moved the vote forward. Richard has the original Lakeview records. Where is he? I don't know. He said he would appear when it was safe. It has not been safe for 20 years. No, Vanessa said. But he believes you can make it safe. The next night, Maya and I entered the warehouse through a service tunnel. Vanessa wore a microphone. Federal agent Lucas Grant waited nearby with a team, but he could not arrest Daniel without hearing enough to connect him to the transfers. From behind a steel partition, I watched Daniel meet Elise. He gave her a passport and a bag of money. Elise asked, "What about Claire? After the shareholder vote, she'll be charged," Daniel said. "By the time her lawyers unravel the transfers, the company will belong to me." And Vanessa? Daniel laughed. She still thinks I'm going to protect her father. Eyes coal alive. Not for long. I felt Vanessa move in the darkness across the warehouse. She had heard him. Elise examined the money. "You promised $2 million. You'll get the rest after you delete the security footage." Vanessa copied it. Daniel's expression changed. He turned toward the partition. "Vanessa." Silence. Daniel pulled a gun. The federal agents rushed in, but the warehouse lights went out. A shot cracked through the darkness. I dropped behind a concrete block. When emergency lights flickered on, Elise was gone. Daniel was gone. Vanessa lay on the floor with blood spreading across her silver, gray coat. I crawled to her and pressed my hands against the wound. "Stay with me." She struggled to speak. "He knows about the phone." "How?" "Martin. My father's trusted lawyer had told Daniel everything, and while we were at the warehouse, Martin was alone with the original recordings." "Parfa you are. The trappy NZDTHE, trappy Vanessa survived the shooting." The bullet passed through her shoulder, but she lost enough blood to remain unconscious for 2 days. Daniel's gun was found near the warehouse exit. He claimed Elise had taken it and shot Vanessa. He also claimed the recording of his conversation had been edited. His attorneys moved quickly, and because the agents had not witnessed the first part of the meeting, he avoided arrest. Elise vanished. Martin vanished too. When I returned to my hotel, the old phone was gone. My father's folder had been burned in the bathroom sink. The only reason we still had evidence was that Maya had copied every file to an encrypted server. Daniel did not know that. For the first time, I understood the advantage of appearing defeated. I called him. "You win," I said. He was silent for a moment. "Where are you?" "It doesn't matter. I'll sign over my shares at the meeting." Why the sudden wisdom? Vanessa betrayed both of us. My father lied to me. I'm tired. Daniel wanted to believe me. Pride made him careless. "Come home," he said. "We can discuss an agreement." There is no home. There could be. That was the moment I knew he had never loved me. A man capable of offering reconciliation after destroying my life did not understand love at all. He understood only possession. I agreed to sign at the special shareholder meeting on October 17. In exchange, Daniel would publicly ask prosecutors for leniency and let my mother keep her house. Meanwhile, Maya and Agent Grant followed the money. The $8 million had moved through 4 accounts and returned to a harbor house. Subcontractor controlled by Martin's brother. Martin had created the documents framing me. Elise had entered my office. Daniel had directed both. But we still needed proof a jury could understand. Vanessa woke the morning before the vote. I went to see her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Save your strength." "No. I need to say it while I can. I betrayed you before I tried to protect you. Both things are true. I sat beside her bed. Forgiveness did not come, not then. Where would Martin go? I asked. She closed her eyes. Your father kept a hunting cabin near Ashtabula. Martin used it sometimes. Agent Grant searched the property and found Martin preparing to cross into Canada. In his car were the old phone, forged passports, and a hard drive containing Daniel's financial records. Martin asked for a deal. His confession revealed the final layer of Daniel's plan. Daniel did not merely want my shares. He planned to bankrupt Bennett Urban after taking control. Harbor House's land sat above a newly identified deposit of rare industrial minerals. A private mining company had offered Daniel nearly $400 million for the property. He intended to cancel the housing project, sell the land, and blame the collapse on my fraud. Thousands of residents would lose promised homes. Investors would lose everything. Daniel would disappear with the profit. Martin had helped because Daniel possessed evidence that Martin had falsified documents after the Lakeview fire. For 20 years, fear had owned him. Where is Richard Cole? I asked during the recorded interview. Martin looked at the camera. I don't know. Did Richard set the fire? Who did? Martin swallowed. Thomas Bennett. The room became very still. My father had ordered the Lakeview fire. According to Martin, Bennett Urban had been weeks from bankruptcy. My father arranged a small fire after hours to collect insurance money. He believed the warehouse would be empty. But Samuel Ortiz had returned for a forgotten lunchbox and died in the smoke. Daniel's uncle discovered the plan and demanded a secret ownership share. Richard Cole wanted to confess. My father begged him to wait while he gathered proof against Daniel's uncle. Then Richard disappeared. All my life, I had believed my father built his company through courage and honesty. The foundation was ash. I left the interview and vomited in the restroom. Maya found me sitting on the floor. If this becomes public, Harbor House is finished, I said. Maybe. My father's name will be destroyed. His name is not more important than Samuel Ortiz. I knew she was right. That did not make the truth easier to carry. My phone rang. It was my mother. There is a man here, she said. He says his name is Richard. We reached her house 20 minutes later. Richard Cole was sitting at the kitchen table. He looked older than his 70 years. A scar crossed the left side of his face. Vanessa had his eyes. He placed a metal case on the table. I should have come back long ago, he said. Why didn't you? Because Daniel's uncle found me before I reached the police. He tried to kill me and left me in the lake. A fisherman rescued me. When I learned they were watching Vanessa, I stayed dead. You let your daughter believe you were gone. His voice broke. Every day. And my father. Thomas spent the rest of his life trying to repair what he did. But he never confessed. He protected the company instead of the truth. The metal case contained the original Lakeview partnership records, a statement from the fisherman who saved Richard, and a tape of Daniel's uncle admitting he had turned my father's desperate crime into a 20-year blackmail scheme. Richard also had something we did not expect. Recent messages from Daniel offering $5 million for the case and threatening to kill Vanessa if Richard refused. It was enough to prosecute Daniel for extortion, obstruction, and conspiracy. But I wanted him to confess to framing me in front of the people he had deceived. So we created a trap. At the shareholder meeting, I would tell Daniel that Richard had given me the metal case. I would offer to exchange it for a signed confession clearing my name. Daniel would believe the confession could never be used because I had obtained it through blackmail. The shareholders, federal agents, and press would be watching from the ballroom, next door through a private video feed. There was one danger. Daniel had already tried to have Vanessa killed. If he sensed the trap, he might kill me too. We can arrest him on the evidence we have, Agent Grant said. And his lawyers will separate him from every crime, I replied. Martin will become the frightened mastermind. Elise will become the shooter. Daniel will call Richard an unstable dead man. You're asking us to risk your life for a stronger case. No, I'm asking you to let him believe my life is still his to control. On the morning of October 17, I dressed in the same navy suit I had worn when my father made me chief financial officer. Before I left, my mother touched my face. Your father was not the man you thought he was, she said. But you do not have to become him to defeat Daniel. What do you mean? Do not save the company by hiding the truth. That was when I changed the final part of my plan. I would expose Daniel, and then I would expose my father too. Even if telling the whole truth cost me everything I was fighting to regain. The last agreement. The shareholder meeting took place in the same hotel ballroom where my public destruction had begun. Daniel liked symbols. He believed returning to that room would prove he had won. My name was gone. Investors filled the seats. Reporters waited next door, but Daniel did not know. He wore a dark suit and the blue tie I had given him for his 40th birthday. You came, he said. I said I would. His attorneys placed a stack of papers in front of me. The top page transferred all my voting shares to a trust controlled by Daniel. One signature, he said. And this ends. I looked at the line waiting for my name. For 11 years, I had signed birthday cards, mortgage papers, company reports, and anniversary letters beside that man. My signature had helped build his life. Then he copied it to destroy mine. I put down the pen. Richard Cole came home last night. Daniel's expression barely changed, but his right hand tightened. Richard is dead. No. He has the original Lakeview records, and your messages threatening Vanessa. Daniel dismissed his attorneys and security staff. Give us the room. When the doors closed, he stepped closer. Where is the case? Safe. What do you want? A confession. Signed by you. It says you ordered Martin to create the transfers, hired Elise to impersonate me, and staged the gala presentation. He smiled. And if I refuse? Richard gives everything to the FBI. You think the Bennett name survives those records? Newt. That answer confused him. Your father murdered a man, Daniel said. My father caused a man's death and hid the truth. The public deserves to know. He stared at me as if I had spoken a language he did not understand. You would destroy your own company. I would rather lose an honest company than own one built on a lie. Daniel walked slowly around the table. You always wanted to be better than Thomas. That was your weakness. No. Believing I could save you was my weakness. He leaned close. I never needed saving. Then, why did you marry me? At first, access. Your father would not give me control, but he loved you enough to make you his successor. I knew that if you trusted me, the company would eventually be mine. Hearing it still hurt. Part of me had hoped that 1 year, 1 day, or even 1 moment of our marriage had been real. And Vanessa? I asked. Vanessa wanted to believe she could outsmart me. She was useful. Did you order Elise to shoot her? I told Elise to solve the problem. Like you told Martin to solve me. Martin was easy. He had spent 20 years waiting to be punished. Daniel picked up the transfer agreement. Sign it, Claire. Give me the case, and I will let you leave. You mean you will kill me later? You smiled again. You finally learned. I slid a one-page confession across the table. Sign mine first. A confession obtained through a threat is worthless. Then you have nothing to fear. He read it. The confession named Martin, Elise, the false transfers, and the plan to sell Harbor House. You forgot something, he said. What? The $8 million. What about it? Only $6 million returned through Martin's subcontractor. $2 million is still missing. I had assumed Elise took it as payment. Daniel enjoyed my surprise. Vanessa moved it, he said. She was building an escape fund for herself and Richard. I did not believe him, but doubt entered anyway. You see, he continued, everyone betrays you. Your father, your husband, your best friend. The difference is that I never pretended people were good. You pretended you were. Daniel signed the confession. Then he removed the cap from a second pen and offered it to me. Your turn. I looked toward the camera hidden inside a flower arrangement. Daniel followed my eyes. His face changed. He swept the vase from the table. The camera struck the floor. The ballroom doors opened immediately, but Daniel grabbed me before the agents entered. Something hard pressed against my side. A small pistol had been taped beneath the table. Stay back, he shouted. Agent Grant raised his hands. Let her go. Daniel dragged me toward a service exit. Behind the agents stood shareholders, reporters, and employees. Every person Daniel had deceived had heard him confess. Then Vanessa stepped through the crowd. Her injured arm rested in a sling. Daniel, she said. He froze. You should be dead. You were never very good at finishing what you started. Daniel shifted the gun toward her. I drove my heel down on his foot and turned. The shot exploded near my ear. Agent Grant tackled him before he could fire again. As Daniel hit the floor, the signed confession slid from the table and landed beside his hand. He looked at it as agents pulled his arms behind his back. That was the last document Daniel Bennett ever signed as chief executive. The investigation lasted 14 months. Elise was arrested in Arizona and testified that Daniel paid her to impersonate me, access my computer, and shoot Vanessa if the meeting went wrong. Martin also testified and received a reduced prison sentence. Daniel was convicted of wire fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, extortion, obstruction of justice, and several related crimes. The judge sentenced him to 38 years in federal prison. At sentencing, he looked at me for the first time since his arrest. You destroyed your father's name for this? He said. No, I answered. I stopped destroying Samuel Ordiz's. The full truth about the Lakeview fire became public. Bennett Urban's stock collapsed. 3 directors resigned. Investors filed lawsuits. For several weeks, it appeared the company would disappear. I held a press conference and admitted everything my father had hidden. I did not excuse him. I did not speak about the good he had done afterward, as if good deeds could cancel a dead man. I apologized to the Ortiz family and announced that I would surrender half of my inherited shares to a restitution trust. Then Samuel Ortiz's daughter, Alina, surprised everyone. She was 62, a retired school principal with steady eyes. My father died because powerful people believed their future mattered more than his life, she told the reporters. Claire Bennett is the first person from that company to tell us the truth without being forced by a court. Alina joined the independent board that rebuilt Bennett Urban. Harbor House was delayed, but it was not canceled. We rejected the mining company's offer. With new investors and public oversight, construction began 18 months later. The first apartment building was named Ortiz House. The missing $2 million was found in a protected account created by Vanessa. Daniel had told part of the truth, but not the reason. Vanessa had moved the money to keep him from sending it overseas. Every dollar was recovered. Vanessa and I did not return to the friendship we once had. Some betrayals cannot be erased by later courage. But recovery is not always a return. Sometimes it is the creation of something more honest. She testified against Daniel and spent a year helping Richard adjust to the life he had abandoned. Eventually, she moved to Pennsylvania and opened a crisis center for families living under threats and coercion. On the day she left Cleveland, we met for coffee. "Do you forgive me?" she asked. I thought about the hotel suitcase, the hidden letter, the warehouse floor, and the 7 months she had spent in my husband's bed. "I forgive the frightened woman who tried to make things right," I said. "But I cannot trust the friend who helped break me." She nodded through tears. "That is fair." We hugged once. It was not a new beginning or a cruel ending. It was the truth, and for us, the truth was enough. Richard pleaded guilty to concealing evidence after the fire and served 18 months under home confinement. He used that time to record his memories for Vanessa. My mother moved to a small house overlooking Lake Erie. She kept one photograph of my father, not to worship or hate him, but to remember the whole man. I struggled longer. There were mornings when I missed the father I thought I knew. There were nights when I woke reaching for Daniel before remembering what he had done. Grief does not care whether the person you miss deserves to be missed. Therapy taught me that loving someone did not prove they were good, and being deceived did not prove I was foolish. 2 years after the gala, I stood on the completed Ortiz house. Families moved in below, and children ran through the new lakefront park. Alina Ortiz stood beside me. "Your father wanted to build something here," she said. "Yes. This is not what he imagined." "No. It's better." At sunset, we unveiled a bronze plaque bearing Samuel's name. Beneath it, his family had written, "A safe home begins with the truth." Daniel said nothing would be left. I never recovered my marriage, friendship, or spotless memory of my father. But I took back my voice, my name, and my company by refusing to protect it from the truth. I learned that justice is not the moment your enemy falls. It is what you build after his lies no longer shape your life. Daniel tried to bury me beneath my own signature. In the end, his was the last signature the lie ever needed. End.